Yeah, it was what was it? Painting and drawing was the concentration.
Gosh.
And then I wanted to make those things move, but we didn't have an animation department at Allegheny at the time, and still don't, but it's Com Arts.
Yeah.
So I taught myself how to do rotoscope animation for the senior thesis, and it was like a 10-minute animation, and it ended up winning a bunch of film festivals. And it showed at the Hollywood or the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood, where they do the handprints.
How
and the
many
stars.
slides a second? Did you do all
I did
24?
24.
You did all 24?
And this is before computers had the ability to basically do this with
Right,
the snap of a finger. So I
right.
was hand drawing each frame.
Oh, my God.
No, I wore glasses after that because I think I wrecked my eyes.
Wow.
But
wow.
yeah,
Rotoscoping is literally hand drawing each frame.
Yeah, so you'd like film something with
Yeah.
an actual camera and then draw on top of those frames. You can keep the thing that you filmed or you can remove it. And I would do a mix of both. But
Unreal.
yeah. But that was awesome. And then from there...
Did you spend any time in L.A. or no?
For 3 days.
Oh, that's it. Okay,
that was it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how much interest I have in going back and living that life, but it was what a thrill. And then coming back, it gave me some credibility to kind of do the arts education work that I wanted to do. So worked with Erie Earth Force as an AmeriCorps Vista, which was turned to Earth Action, and now is kind of part of that whole group at the Tom Ridge Environmental Center. But Pat Lupo was my first mentor there, and she's still alive and active.
Sister Pat.
She's amazing.
Making it happen.
Yep. So I was in charge of like 4 after-school environmental programs. And I found the best way to kind of get through and have conversations with kids was actually through the arts. And so we did our own kind of stop-motion animations and art projects around the environment. And then went to the art museum where I met Kelly Armour and worked under her for a bit, running tours and art programs there. Was a rostered Pennsylvania teaching artist where I'd go into classrooms and maybe integrate the arts into core disciplines. So if fifth graders were learning about the solar system that day, then we were going to make art about the solar system. So it really activated those kids who might not be engaged in class, see themselves as academic, but they were having success on that creative side, which bred success on the academic side.
Yeah.
And it was great. Ran Box of Light Studios, which was a nonprofit with my wife, Annie Schmidt, and then found my way to the library to start the Idea Lab there, the makerspace for adults. And I guess to bring us up to date, then Daria Devlin met with me one day and said, "Hey, I'm standing up this arts program at ECAT. Let me tell you what ECAT is." And I said, "Oh, heck yeah, I'm all in." And so I've been there for about 4 years.
And the basis of ECAT, again, according to like the headline when you go to your website, is adult career training and teen arts programs.
Yep.
So how do you balance those two big pillars?
Yes. So the answer lies in the origin story of this whole model, which
I would love for you to go there.
Great.
Yes.
Okay. So it started with Bill Strickland, who grew up in Pittsburgh in the 1960s during the Civil Rights Movement. As he would describe himself, and he has a wonderful TED Talk who can describe all of this much better than me. So after you're done listening to me, go check that out. But he would self-describe kind of aimless student, didn't really know what he wanted to do, what he was successful at. One day walked in on this guy who was hunched over this table, pulling up mud and making it into a vase. And Bill was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And this was an art teacher, Mr. Ross, who said, I'm making clay. Do you want to, I'm making pots out of clay. Would you want to join me?" And he was like, "Yeah, I would." So he fell in love with it. And as he would say, graduated high school by making pots for the teachers he was struggling for within class.
Wow.
But then when he graduated, he started teaching art classes on his porch. He was a great leader in the community. And then a couple leaders said, "Hey, we have this struggling workforce center. Bill, would you want to take it over?" And he was like, "Sure," not knowing what to do. But his instincts were right on, which was environment shapes behavior. So we're going to look at this building. We are going to paint the walls. We're going to fix the floors. We're going to make this a beautiful space so that you show up with the expectations that the space is giving you. He went on to build the Manchester Bidwell Center, which was designed by one of the same guy who designed the Pittsburgh airport.
Wow.
And that space is beautiful. And the concept is light, art, beauty, laughter. These are all things that he, as he would call, kind of cure the cancer of the soul. and All People Are Assets, and Creativity Fuels Enterprise are kind of the two other pillars of ECAT. So anyway, this center, he started it down in Pittsburgh, started replicating across the globe. There's a site in Israel now.
Wow.
So yeah, came to ECAT. We bought the old ECAT Wayne School building, renovated it for about $13 million, and that was largely the work of Daria Devlin and our founding board members. And so we came in knowing we wanted to do the two core things that all Bidwell centers, or CAT centers as we call them, do. And that is workforce training at no cost, no financial cost to the students, and art programs for teens at no cost to those students. So we look at it as you do those two things because they're multi-generational. You're working with the teens and the kids, and then you're doing workforce training for the adults. And then we have that going on. We have kids who are coming through our arts programs while their adults are kind of in our career training programs. And it's just a multi-generational approach. But I think, if you ask me now, 4 years later, the secret is the art. The art and the beauty and the light is what ties all this together, because most schools don't put the priority on that. They might put the priority on the curriculum, or the priority on excellent teachers, or the priority on graduation rates. And by no means do we not put priorities on those. But we started with our building. We started with bringing a center that people would want to come to every day and think, wow, this is beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so clean in here.
Yeah.
There's a waterfall in our lobby. There's high windows. There's art on the walls. Like, it's to be in you're in a new studio, and it just changes the whole scope of things.
There's no doubt.
Yeah.
We're talking to Jude Shingle. He is the Executive Director of ECAT. We're going to get more of this story here and learn how it's changing lives here in Erie right after this. Just having one of these conversations around workforce that is just one of our priorities of the community conversation here in Erie. It's the Joel and Natalie Show. Jude Shingle is with us here, the Executive Director of the Erie Center for Arts and Technology. And you're hinting at this. I want you to just drive it home. The concept of these two pillars, the adult career training and the teen arts programs, and you're saying that the arts are the key. And it's so funny and it's counterintuitive, Jude, because arts in this current educational climate have been diminished. I mean, I'm thinking about even our friends at Penn West Edinburgh. They were known as a music school, right? I mean, they were the...
Yep.
Mercyhurst was the private school. Edinburgh was the public school. And, they had the beautiful Centennial Hall and beautiful music building. And there are no more music majors at Edinburgh. It's like it takes your breath away a little.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Now, kudos on them. One of their big drivers is that animation and visual art.
Yes. Yeah, and I oh my gosh, and so that does a couple things, right? All of our students, if you think of it a ladder, right? Our students are graduating art programs. They go to Penn West and they get to study at this world class, truly, because people graduate there and work all over the industry.
They go to Pixar.
Yeah. But then you also get that locus of talent, right? So you have the working and teaching artists who can be employed at that school, generate world-class art out of that hub. So it's so important to have that regionally. Mm-hmm. So I'm so glad that they're still there. I'm so glad that they're, it seems like they're starting to figure that out too. And to your point, I mean, maybe not what it once was, but certainly a pivot to something that I still think is a real gem in our community.
So when you have a teen arts program, this is not necessarily to create more artists, but to create more individuals that are able to use art as a driver for better educational outcomes, better interpersonal outcomes. Talk about some of that part on the teen side.
On the teen side, yeah. The way we think about it is the arts program's goal is to develop artistic behaviors. So what are those things that an artist does when they're confronting an unknown answer? So if you said, hey, I'm going to paint a mural on the wall about the city of Erie, again, you can't Google that. They might give you really generic answers. The answer to that question is both a mix of what's inside you, the conversations we're having with the community, the wall that's in front of you, the budget that you have, the paints that you have access to, your own skill level. All of those things are ingredients. And so an artist is the one who's actually curating and orchestrating that entire process. So artistic behaviors would be things like experimenting, getting feedback, taking risks, research, those kind of skills, and we talked about this with liberal arts education, they're transferable. Mm-hmm. So you can go through and learn all these artistic behaviors. That will make you a great leader. That will make you someone who's engaged in the civic community. So that's really our fundamental goal. And we could talk, if you like, about how we structured it to make sure that was happening. But yeah, and the kids are responding. I mean, they're showing up in droves. We saw 100 students last year. We have about 35 to 40 students showing up every night. And part of that is they just want something constructive and creative to do with their peers. And part of it is they want to make this community a better place. And the arts seem to be the most natural way for them to think about that.
When you were talking in the first break, I was thinking about felt need. I mean, when the founder here came to Erie in 2015, there was a hole, right?
Yeah.
That we were trying to fill. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So when they came in, I mean, you were looking at workforce development programs. So like, what are the gaps and like, what are the key industries, and do we actually have the educational sector to kind of get them to that level? There was a felt need for the age group within the arts. So we had a lot of kind of early elementary or late elementary arts programs. And then we had collegiate level arts programs, but not necessarily anything to fill that void for the teens. So when we came in, that was our strategic approach. We're going to focus on teens, and then we're going to focus on really serving basically workforce training for those high in demand industries, which for us was construction trades and medical. So that's how we started.
All right, let's talk a little bit about that. Again, we have this dilemma where we do have VOTEC, we have the Erie County Technical School, we do have Erie has their career in technical education, but it seems like in a lot of these classes they fill up. Like there's waiting lists and things like that, and you think about I don't know how many different school districts feed into VOTEC, but if you may not get that carpenter slot or that plumbing slot or HVAC slot, right?
Right. And for those VOTEC schools, certainly embedded, I mean, you've got to make that decision pretty early on.
Like as a freshman.
Yeah, right. And so if you haven't decided till you're junior, well, it's not really designed for you to go backwards and kind of complete that program.
So this is where you guys come in, so tell me a little bit about the development of that program.
Yeah. So first of all, we need it all, right? So there's a lot of different approaches to.
You're awfully demanding, Jude.
Oh, yeah, I know.
We need it all.
But I mean, I guess when you think of workforce development, you think, well, there's all these other centers doing it. And that's absolutely right. But we're all doing it in slightly different ways. And I think that is actually meeting the demand of our students, right? So ECAT's approach is maybe twofold. So the first one is we really focus on student supports. So we know because our students have taken some of these this is post high school, might have gone to a private school or another vocational program, have gone halfway through, and then life happened. They couldn't find childcare. They lost a job. They were back on their rent. They just didn't have transportation. That's what prevented them from completing the program, and those programs are super stringent. They are removed from the program or they had to drop out, and now but they're still carrying the debt of that program. So you're $10,000 in debt. You don't actually have the cert to get you to that next level of your career. And so now what do you do? So our focus very early on was the students who are coming to our programs, our goal is to get them through. They're not going to pay financially. The cost that they're going to pay is showing up and making that commitment. So we have a student support fund. We have a student supports coordinator, and their sole job is to make sure all of our students have the resources that they need to kind of get through those barriers. So a really good example is we had a student who was behind on their rent. They were young. This is kind of their first time dealing with, rent. And so she was about to get evicted. So our support specialist stepped in and said, okay, let me understand the situation. First, let's set up a meeting with your landlord and let's have a conversation of what rental etiquette looks like. How are you communicating about back rent? Okay, can we help you fund your back rent? We were able to do that. We were able to find a donor who was able to give that money. We were able to then put them on kind of a payment plan and make sure that they were meeting rent going forward. There were a couple other barriers we removed as well, but that student graduated on Saturday, had a job on Monday, and now is successful in that career. But had they gotten stuck in that moment, they wouldn't have gone through. And so that's kind of we take that very seriously, and we do that for all of our students who are enrolled.
We're talking to Jude Shingle. He is from ECAT here. We got more after the news at the bottom of the hour. It's Talk Erie. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. We're also streaming live on YouTube and on Facebook. And we're glad to have with us Jude Shingle. He is the Executive Director of Erie Center for Arts and Technology. And we're talking with Jude about workforce development in some key areas, including construction and in medical healthcare and things. And Jude, we were saying about off the air about the concept of work culture, of really going out there and working your hardest. There's a lot of negative narratives about the younger generation, about Gen Zers. They just don't want to work. That's not what you see, I bet.
That hasn't been my experience, no.
Yeah.
No. So one night I'm walking out the building, I don't know, after class, and one of our students is sitting on the bench waiting for the bus. I said, "Hey, can I ask you a weird question? Why did you sign up for this?" I said, "Because medical is not something I'd ever considered. I mean, that seems like a really hard job. But why is that something you're saying yes to or committing yourself to?" And their answer was, my grandmother was in the hospital. They cared for her for 4 months, and the level of service that she had and the level of care was incredible. And that touched something inside of her. And she said, "That's what I want to dedicate my life to."
Wow.
So the students that I'm talking to have that deep desire to do something that makes a difference. I think what they don't have patience for is maybe if they don't see that the work they're doing is going to contribute to that. And some of it is it's not going to happen right away, right? We also talked off air about paying your dues a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's your role as an educator to really make the case for why you're doing some of these fundamental things that are going to pay off later.
Are you feeling like that there's a teachable moment here for older people in management and leadership to say, be aware of the culture that's coming up? Not that you have to totally destroy all of your core values, but maybe you could be a little more accessible to how your children basically have come up. I mean, if you have a Gen Xer who's in leadership, you probably have Gen Zer kids.
Yeah.
This is the world you built with them.
That's right.
And now they're getting power and they're getting into the workforce, and maybe you have to bend a little, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I don't know about you. I feel like the best leaders that I've been a part of are the ones who give you space to have a conversation. You're not dictating like, I need you to do this exactly like this, and I need it by here. But if you said, this is what I'm trying to achieve, what do you think about this? Yeah. How should we go about this? And now it's a partnership, right? That already feels more meaningful. It might be literally the same task, but you have more ownership of what's going on. So yes, I think it's a learning moment. I think we're also in a moment where we're constantly able to compare ourselves with other people through social media, the internet, and all that stuff. And so it's really easy to think, oh, this person is doing things that are just gives them joy 24/7. And I don't know about you, but that's not my experience either. It's
Right.
It's a lot of uncertainty and stress and working hard. And then hopefully there is that payoff. But frankly, sometimes there's not, and that's okay too. And so I think it's both of those conversations. It's being present with the person in front of you and giving them space to step up themselves and contribute. And it's also just being really honest about what doing good work looks like. It doesn't look good all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you just have to really love the process to be able to get through some of those moments. I'm going to keep going back to the art, but that's where I learned that, right?
Wow.
I mean, you do a 10-hour drawing and you put it up on the wall and they're like, those proportions are off. Like that's not a quick erase. That is a tear it down to the studs and go back, right?
Wow.
So, and you kind of have to love doing that. But I think you do. I think you can learn that for almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
But it does take maybe that silence and that focus. And
how else are you going to learn attention to detail?
Yeah.
Until you don't pay attention to detail. And you have to blow it up.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about the felt needs, and we kind of focus on the individual's felt needs to build more skill sets. But there's a community felt need that I think Erie Center for Arts and Technology is addressing. When you have some of those high level meetings with your board and other strategic partners, what is that center around, you think?
Yeah, I mean, we look at our community as the need of, so we have a building, right, and we have tenants who can rent spaces in that building. So the first goal was, how do we give, access to the things our community are asking for? So the first thing we did was hire an individual who went door to door and knocked on over 400 doors and understood, hey, what does healthcare access look like to you? What other things do you need, both kind of workforce wise, socially? What are the problems in our neighborhood? What are the opportunities? What's going really well? And so out of that work, helped inform what tenants should be there. At the time, we roped around the Health, Wealth, and Equity District, which is right around East Avenue. And so when Build, which is Community Development Corporation through the Hammett Health Foundation, has purchased 2 residential buildings on that neighborhood to address the housing need, which because we're in that space, we can actually creatively build programs around. So our construction trade students who are going through a trades program are able to have on-the-job training hours where they get paid for this work to help rehabilitate those residential houses. So they're learning how to do all that work, and now they're building houses for people in that community to live. And it's just such a win-win, and it's so synergistic. But that starts with that original really talking with the community and understanding what those needs are.
Yeah, that's astounding. Was this a health desert before the Wayne Health Clinic there?
Yeah, we at the time, I can't think of the specifics. I don't want to give false details, but at the time we had a pharmacy in our space, and there was just no access to a pharmacy there. We're also in the food desert, and health access. There's not a doctor's office close by. Obviously, the hospital and kind of that core facility there. So there was, but we had a primary health network had actually been there. One of the first schools that actually had access to a doctor's office in their own building. And they were in that building during renovations of ECAT Wayne. So that's wild. So now they have a beautifully renovated suite. And at first it didn't start as well, but it has really taken off, and it's just been such a great asset to have healthcare access in that community.
So are you pretty much full up with the former Wayne Skill?
To the gills, Joel. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a good problem to have. It's also, our programs are doing really well. We have a lot more applications than enrollments that we can take. So when we think about growing, we're careful and strategic about what that might look like, just because it's not easy to just find more space in our building.
I was going to say, does that necessarily mean that you would want to grow to a second building, or is this kind of where you're kind of staying the course here and maybe building strategic partnerships with other entities that are similar to yours?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the driving force for us is identifying what industries need workforce. So again, that's what started our medical. That's what started our construction trades. Another gap that we've identified is dental. So we're in the early stages of figuring out what that looks like, but that's going to drive it, is understanding what regional workforce needs, so that we can get our students into living wage jobs. Whether that's on our site or with a partner site or whatever, for it to be an ECAT program, it's going to be grounded in that student support, right? Making sure that students are going to get a holistic approach to support. And then one thing we didn't talk about necessarily was just the funnels. So finding different ways where students might find themselves at entry points in that career field, whether it's really beginning and exploratory or really dedicated, or do they want to take the next step even beyond what ECAT can offer? So,
when you guys were coming up, we didn't have a community college.
That's right.
And now we do have a 3-site community college, or 2-site or whatever. Is that a situation where there's plenty of work to go around?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a niche that ECAT holds that the community college might not, right? I think there's the community college has a real broad kind of approach, and we're kind of very hyper specific, really 2 core programs, right? And each of those programs can take about 20 to 25 students. So,
okay. Yeah, so it's very focused. The you've got these two pillars: adult workforce, teen arts. You've got the building that is almost its own. It's its own mission. The building in and of itself, and it just kind of lends itself to that neighborhood of just kind of being, hey, we're this kind of new community center or what have you here. Are the community centers a strategic partner with ECAT, do you think?
Yeah, so each community center is great because it's localized within their own community, right? And so they really understand what they're doing. So we absolutely partner, and we have those communications. We might refer students to other centers. But each center seems to really kind of have its own sweet spot and kind of who they serve and how they serve. So we've been really fortunate to kind of get the buy-in that we have from our community. But yeah, I think in different ways, like for example, our art students might contribute art to other neighborhood centers' art shows, right? We might go on field trips to other places. Recently, our construction trade students might help with our West Bayfront or Habitat for Humanity or other sites where they're building construction projects. Well, that's great for us because our students get hands-on skills, but we're also being good neighbors, right? And we're all trying to go in the same direction.
Talk about financial literacy and home ownership. Again, all these things kind of come up. These social determinants of health kind of come up under your purview, don't they?
Yeah, that's. I mean, anytime you talk about education, education's such a big, hairy problem because it intersects all of those different things, right? So while our students are there, we're having those conversations about financial literacy, home ownership, sometimes entrepreneurship. So we try to bring in, third parties to come in and offer those workshops and those classes, really integrated into the core curriculum, if you will. And we're also trying to get a little innovative. Erie's Black Wall Street's in our building, and so they have a wonderful entrepreneurship program and first-time home building program, or home ownership program. And so that's something we want our students to have access to, especially our construction trade students, because that's an opportunity to start their own businesses in the trades. So yeah, hopefully those kind of things move forward. We got a couple grants in, but I love where you're thinking, because I think it's a great opportunity to have those conversations while you're in school. Like that's the time to do it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about what does that trajectory look like for that. I almost would say middle schooler. So you have somebody across the street, East Middle School. They're leaving 8th grade. They're about to go to Erie High or collegiate or wherever to prep, whatever. And they've got some options. They've got some choices. Could ECAT be a choice for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you mean in terms of a place to go?
Like a place to go after school?
Yeah.
Maybe for some homework help or they love the arts and they want to develop their painting and their ceramics or what have you.
Yeah, we've offered a number of, usually through the arts is where we start.
Yeah,
at that
sure.
age. In high school, we might have them come in and look at the careers trades. But 8th graders from East can hop right over and take our programs right away. And I love that because they feel like they're with high schoolers. The high schoolers hate it because they're like, oh my gosh, these kids are so young. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was a year ago for you.
Right.
But yeah, and then we do some middle school programs throughout the year as well to kind of get those 6th and 7th graders. But talking about the interesting ways that like these programs tend to intersect with bigger ideas. So our students will create art, and at the end of the semester, we have a student art show. Well, those students can actually sell their art. 90% of the money is going to that student. We only take 10% for the supplies. And so then there's a really good conversation about financial literacy. It's, hey, what do you do with that money? And then they're really nervous about, well, how do I price this? Do you think if it's $5, someone will buy it? And we have a conversation about how long did it take you to make it, right? If it took you 5 days and that's 15 hours of work, like is $5 really appropriate for how much time you spent on it, right?
Wow.
And well, what if they don't buy it? What does that rejection feel like? And so it's so many interesting conversations around all of that can happen.
That's they're having adult conversations.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's pretty challenging.
Yeah. I think that's the secret sauce here. So one of the things that we talk a lot is like, when students' hands are busy, whether it's working with clay or they're sewing or they're painting, that's when they start to open up. They're not maybe as self-conscious, and so they're going to start to have conversations that are real and deep to them. And our instructors are trained for that, right? So they're going to have those conversations with them, and I think that's something that's really special. I don't know about you, but I had an adult like that in my life at that age, and that was transformative. It meant the world. And we know from data that it just takes one caring adult to really change the trajectory of your life. So we try to really have a diversity of teaching artists there, that students can choose their own mentor. And that's just kind of baked into the model because we know how important that is.
Do you think that ECAT could be a catalyst to end generational poverty, or get people bridged out of poverty?
Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing the students who are graduating from our workforce programs having living wage jobs, bringing their families out of poverty. And so that alone. But you do that over 20 years, and now we're talking multiple generations. What I'm most excited about is the students that we're working with now. They're going to take over that place, and it's just going to keep rippling out. We're always going to have hard problems to solve, always. But if you can have centers that are really dedicated on focusing on people and building them up, building that hope, building that confidence, then we'll be okay, because people will rise to the occasion, right? So again, all people are assets is a core philosophy. People are not broken, right? They have gifts to give. There might be a whole lot of reasons why they don't feel like they're up to it right now, but come to our center, that we're going to build you up. That's the story you're going to tell yourself, and we're seeing it happen.
Sounds like it's a place where you could find agency and empowerment.
I love those words. Yeah. And what I don't want to wax too poetic here, Joel, but I think that that's the core of all of this. I mean, I think that's, when I think of our school lately, I've been thinking about it. It was built on light, right? We have these windows, big windows, and I think that the challenge, maybe another way to say it, that we're facing isn't a challenge of information, right? We live in the most accessible age of information, so there's something else going on why we can't kind of break through and get people to feel confident and empowered.
Well, I just think about, we have a mental health and anxiety epidemic. We have all of these societal ills. And what ECAT is telling us is, here's a paintbrush and here's paint. Maybe this could help you figure some of the world's problems out. And you're seeing success.
Yes. And I love the approach. It makes sense to me, but maybe not to everybody. It doesn't feel that direct, right? If you're like, I'm going to solve the workforce crisis by basically putting a bunch of people through construction trades, why would you say, I'm going to make sure it's in a really beautiful building that has access to art, and we're going to have a lot of student supports around it because that's expensive? Well, the reason you do it is because it works, because it touches your soul, right? And if we're talking about empowerment and agency, that's where you got to start. You got to start on the inside. Otherwise, you're just not able to retain the other things that are kind of being pushed your direction. So
I think some folks should give you a phone call and say, can I look at your space? And I mean, can you imagine the fellow that's trying to have his auto collision center upgraded? Or I'm just thinking, they're trying to make their employees happy. Maybe they should take a visit of ECAT.
I would love that. Please, anytime, come in, take a tour
with your tool and die shop. Come over.
Come over. Yeah.
You might get some ideas.
I think there's a lot of truth to it, and I mean, I don't know. Look at Silicon Valley. There's a reason why they're making beautiful spaces.
I think you think about what Apple. Apple Center or Apple Circle or the foosball on every floor, right?
Yeah.
Jude Shingle, again, the Executive Director of the Erie Center for Arts and Technology. Congratulations on the new position.
Thank you.
And keep it going.
Thank you.
You got it. It is 6 minutes in front of 5.